Welcome to Baha'i Chat, a conversation series dedicated to our interconnectedness. My name is Kathy Lee, and I'll be the moderator for today. The theme for today's chat is connecting hearts through music. And we will begin with a screening of a 15-minute documentary entitled, Now Let Us Sing. And we will follow that with a discussion with the filmmaker and co-founder of the One Human Family workshops, Dilsey Davis. Also with the One Human Family Executive Director and Choir Director, Cara Williams Madlala, and the One Human Family Director of Training and Outreach, Dr. Charles Bullock. One Human Family Workshops is a national nonprofit organization that creates models of unity using the arts and facilitating frank and honest dialogue. It seeks to eradicate the isms of the world, particularly racism, America's most challenging issue. Now, a little bit more about the documentary film we're about to see. The One Human Family Choir is an interfaith, interracial choir based in Durham, North Carolina, that uses African-American sacred music as the vehicle to create space for rich dialogues and community building. The film Now Let Us Sing follows the members of the One Human Family Choir who must grapple with the emotional roller coaster of trying to sing as one unit while living miles apart from one another during the COVID pandemic.
My brother prayed for me. He kept me on his mind. He took the time to pray for me.
My mom, she was a choir director.
I'm so glad he prayed.
We're so connected when it comes to the music.
I'm so glad he prayed. I'm so glad he prayed for me.
Okay. We just wanted to do a quick check-in with everyone just to see how you all are doing. I know of some people that have been impacted by COVID. So anybody want to jump in?
Well, hello, friends. My family, close and extended, are all healthy. I did have this week the death of the first person I knew well from COVID, and I'll be hosting a Zoom memorial for him.
Our son Dan, lives in a group home. He has developmental disabilities, and one of the staff members was tested positive with COVID. So please say prayers. Ben, he's such a source of joy for us.
Don't do it again.
Don't do it again? Oh, yeah, you must have, because that's the feeling was on the floor.
Anita, would you like some orange juice?
Yes, please.
My name is Dilsey Davis, and I live in Durham, North Carolina.
You got here fast. Hey, girl. What's up?
Cara Williams and I, along with our good friend Eric Dozier, created the One Human Family Choir. One Human Family is a multiracial, multi-faith, multi-generational choir that focuses on unity.
When Dilsey had the idea of gathering together anybody that we had sung with and putting them on a bus and taking a tour of the Deep South and talking about race, I was like, well, let's go.
Soon I will be done with the troubles, done with the troubles, done with the troubles. Soon I will be done with the troubles. We want to live with God, God,
But we quickly realized that there were some tensions within the group. These little agitations and rifts that come up, they're always the result of something bigger.
We realized we've got to figure out how to create spaces where people feel like it's okay to talk about race. So we created these workshops that combined music with dialogues on race. At the beginning of 2020, we were in the middle of planning a week-long race unity celebration in collaboration with the city of Durham and other faith organizations. And then the pandemic happened. All right. Okay. Ania, can you ring the doorbell? All right.
Hello. Music brings me a little closer to God. Whatever problem I'm having, it kind of fades away in the music, lets me know that there's a light, that all this stuff I'm going through, it's just going through it. When the choir starts singing and everybody up shouting, dancing, the benches would vibrate. and you just went to sleep on the vibrating benches.
I was born in Wilmington, North Carolina. And when I was 8, we moved to a close-knit rural community in a neighboring county. It was there that I realized that my family was different. When I was in the 4th grade, my dad brought me to school one day, and a kid came up to me and said, "Oh, your dad's a cracker and you're an Oreo." And I knew he wasn't talking about food. Who my dad is complicated. On my dad's paternal side, his grandfather was from India, and his grandmother was Waccamaw and Lumbee Indian, Black and Irish. My dad's mom was Cherokee and white, but she was raised by her Cherokee and Black aunts. It was like this melting pot, and they'd say, "No, he's white, he looks like Jesus." It was hurtful because it kept coming up all the time at school. It was during that time that I really started turning to music. And all of a sudden, I am in this space and nothing else matters. When I got to college, I met people of many faith backgrounds, including people from the Baha'i faith, and they believe we're all part of one human family. And that was something that really stuck with me.
Even though I know things are getting better, it still feels like a lot of it is just the same thing, just better disguised.
Yeah.
And just,
Is it weirder now because you're not singing with other young people? Like now that we can't get together in person, does that seem just odd?
I don't like to do it alone. It's awkward.
Yeah. I started hearing from the choir members, and they're like, everybody is missing singing together. The key is, how do we get people? Because the choir had been so normal and a part of my life. It wasn't until it was taken away that I'm like, I don't have that outlet. So how are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. It's a little bit rough.
Yeah. We started saying, okay, we're gonna figure out how to use Zoom. we're gonna use the Zoom to the best of our abilities. And so we would have everybody mute themselves and we would go through the parts.
When we're having virtual rehearsals, because of the latency in the technology, we can't sing together. It's a hot mess. Go back to 1, shout, 2, shout, 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 shout. Okay, so you can't watch me because I'm gonna throw you off because there's a delay from when you see me and when you hear me, right?
Okay, all right.
Everybody's muted. So it's a different experience. It's like singing into a vacuum. We can't hear each other, so we can't feed off of each other. We can't feel each other's energy. Almost. Don't be afraid. Ba, 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 da, da. Ba, 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 da. I'll take it. Singing just allows me to touch everything that's inside, whether it's good or bad, and get it out. Singing together in a group, you know, it's like now we're releasing and growing and stretching and loving together. And to not be able to do that was just another devastation on top of all the devastation that 2020 was reaping on us in the first place.
When I watched the video when George Floyd was killed, and then I went back and watched Ahmaud Arbery getting gunned down, and I think for the first time, I wasn't angry like I've been when I've seen stuff or had experienced stuff. I was really sad.
Of this homicide, he thought there was no probable cause.
It was like every moment in time where I've experienced or witnessed someone else experiencing this injustice just rolled all into me at one time. And it was just completely overwhelming. And I think the sadness came from a place of feeling like, why haven't things changed? All these years we've been trying, and where are we?
There's so many things that are dealing with a lack of justice today. And I was thinking about how I think the reason why all this is happening, because it's the time for that to happen.
There are many videos out there of people coming together, showing love.
Something different is happening. And I've also been finding that in my workplace, which I just wanted to say that I'm grateful for this group and I'm really hopeful for the world, and I want to stay connected with you all. That's all.
Really hope that from this,
I began to realize that we are seeing incremental change, and I have to continue to sing. I have to continue to have a voice.
My goodness, it's good to see you guys. Thanks for getting on.
Hey, Deidre, sorry I can't make it to your rehearsal. I've got a racial justice forum that evening.
Awesome. You know, I was listening to the conversation. It sounded like people were saying I'm zoomed out, but really what we're saying is we're more connected than ever before. And I think God, that's obviously part of God's plan. You know?
Although we were able to get together on Zoom, hashtag not the same, something, but not what we're used to having. And so we decided to get everybody together for a family day.
Bring them all back out.
It's so much better than 2 dimensions. 3 dimensions is a lot better than 2. There's a breakthrough in this house, and it's waiting just for you. Next in line, I'm on my way to you. Hold on and you can be next.
There's something magical about having unity in the hearts of the people who are singing together, and this closeness and connectedness, this family. If we have heart-to-heart connections that allow us to be uncomfortable, then I think we can make some changes. I hope that people will allow themselves to be in these kind of spaces where they can really break down these walls.
I won't say that COVID did us a favor, because I'm still mad about the whole COVID of it all. But really, you know, if we were moving a little bit too slow, maybe COVID is God's way of saying, speed it up, people. It has blasted through all the barriers of time and space. There is no excuse anymore for us not to be branching this music out around the world, because it's what we're being called to do.
Now let us sing till the power of the Lord comes down. Now let us sing till the power of the Lord comes down. Lift up your head. Lift up your head. Don't be afraid. Sing till the power of the Lord comes down. Now let us sing till the power of the Lord comes down. Now let us sing till the power of the Lord comes down. Lift up your head. Lift up your head. Don't be afraid. Sing till the power of the Lord comes down. Now let us sing till the power of the Lord comes down. Now let us sing till the power of the Lord comes down. Lift up your head. Lift up your head. Don't be afraid. Sing till the power of the Lord comes down.
Wow, that was so poignant and so real and heartfelt. And part of me feels a bit agitated with the feeling expressed in the film that we're going too slow. Things are changing, but they're changing slowly. So I also found this film to be very inspiring, riveting, and very encouraging. So I want to thank everybody who put this film together. So thank you so much. So now I have the privilege of introducing 3 members of the One Human Family workshop. The first one is Dilsey Davis, who's the filmmaker who created Now Let Us Sing, and she's one of the co-founders of One Human Family workshops. Dilsey lives in Durham, North Carolina, and her life's mission is to use the arts, especially film, to advance society by building social bridges and fostering greater understanding of the equality of all people. Prior to expanding into documentaries, she wrote and directed commercials, narrative films, and television programs. Most notably, she wrote and was the creator, producer, and director of Nuestro Barrio, the first Spanish language telenovela series to air on English language television in the United States. She most recently produced and directed 4 documentary shorts for ITVS Independent Lenses, Stories for Social Justice, on the recent increases of both men and women in rural jails in North Carolina and Tennessee, and it was broadcast on PBS. The East Tennessee-based short, Daughters of Addiction, as well as others, this film was broadcast on PBS. She is currently working on a new documentary about a country singer, Reese Palmer, and the trials and triumphs of African-American singers in country music. She's supported with love and laughter by her husband, Bart Scholl, and 2 toddlers, Ania and Nori. And we all saw Ania in the last shot in the documentary film. That was Dilsey's daughter. I'd also like to introduce another co-founder of One Human Family, and that's Cara Williams Madlala, who serves as the choir director. Cara has been touring for over 20 years, both domestically and abroad, as director and soloist, lead vocalist for the One Human Family Choir. A respected clinician, choral clinician, facilitator and organizer and mentor, Cara has presented choir clinics and music workshops across the United States and Canada. Deeply rooted in spiritual gospel music and heavily influenced by classical, R&B, funk, and jazz greats, her versatile vocal style is evident in her performances. Up until the pandemic, Cara traveled annually to Flint, Michigan to serve as musician in residence at Luhelen, a Baha'i school, where she conducted age-specific music workshops. Participants range from the age 4 to 80, travel from across the United States and Canada to participate in her workshops. Cara always explains to audiences that music has a way of touching the hearts before the mind can change the message, which is why she continues to use her musical abilities as a vehicle to bring diverse peoples together. Cara is also a newlywed, having recently married her soulmate, Becky Madlala. Congratulations, Cara. And I'd like to introduce, finally, Dr. Charles Bullock, who serves as the One Human Family Director of Training and Outreach. Charles grew up in a small rural town in Northeast North Carolina. As an educator, he has taught at elementary, high school, and university levels in the United States and Africa. With a strong passion to improve the educational and socioeconomic development of people on the planet, Dr. Bullock designs and facilitates diversity and inclusion workshops for universities, communities, and civic organizations, and also provides personal coaching services. While in West Africa, his training skills were also utilized in the United Nations programs for education and sanitation. Dr. Bullock became a member of the Baha'i faith in 1965 and has served in multiple administrative and community capacities. He also sings in several choirs, including One Human Family Choir, and has toured throughout the United States and abroad. Dr. Bullock is married to Sandra Bullock, and they have 2 sons and 3 granddaughters. Dilsey, Cara, and Charles, thanks so much for joining us today. I'd like to start our conversation with a question about what inspired you to create the One Human Family Choir, and what difference were you hoping that it would make? Dilsey, let's start with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Kathy. So I would say it was an intersection of several different things coming together, and then there was a culmination. And so I think part of the inspiration came from just growing up singing and music. And as you saw in the beginning of the film, my mom was the first person that I heard sing and taught me to sing, and sang all the time, and as well as her mother. And so growing up in that sense, that it was comforting, as she said in the film, like to be in that space for me. And so it was always, singing has always been comforting for me. And then when I got to college and I joined the Duke Modern Black Mass Gospel Choir. We had a long name at the time, and we had a chance to go to the Czech Republic and sing. And it was right after the fall of Soviet Union, and we got to go. And at that time, people weren't really allowed to go to church. I mean, that was something that was like the churches were just starting to open up again. And so we had an opportunity to go, our entire choir through the jazz studies program, to go to the Czech Republic and perform. And it was an amazing experience. And for me, I guess that was kind of like the first moment I'm like, okay, this music is really powerful. Not just because it was comforting to me, but because it meant so much to other people. And to be in these places where we were singing all these spirituals and gospel music to audiences who had never heard the music before, and also didn't even understand English, but to see how the music was able to transcend the language and transcend just everything and reach the hearts of people, and people were crying and connecting with one another. I was like, oh my gosh, this is way more powerful than I ever thought. And so that was kind of like, just seeing that happening. And then learning about the Baha'i faith, which I said, and also while I was in college. And for me, it was like an answer to a lot of the questions I had growing up about the interconnectedness of all people and religion, having come from a family that comes from many different religious backgrounds and saying, how are they connected? Who's right? Who's not right? And seeing that it all comes together, like there is an interconnectedness, and that religion at its root is all from God, and that all these social things that we do to create divisions are not of God, but that at the fundamental level, it's that. And so seeing that, and then starting to sing, and Eric Dozier, who was the director at our choir at Duke, and we started singing and having different small groups here in Durham and other places, in South Carolina, where he met Cara and we met Cara down there, and doing choirs, and just seeing people come together. And the other thing about like learning about the Baha'i faith for me growing up, I went to a church where it was all African-American, and one white person who was married to an African-American, but it was all divided. Like even when I got older and we went to another church, it was a white church that I happened to really like, their youth program. And it was just seeing that division for so long, and then coming to a space where there are people from many, many different backgrounds praying together and singing together. And so that was inspiring. And then I wouldn't call this inspirational, but it was what really said, okay, now's the time. And it was just the repeated issues that I was dealing with around race, going back to Wilmington after I finished undergrad, before I was going to go on to medical school. I went back to do theater, met another good friend there, Kim Pacheco, but my boyfriend at the time and I would get stopped by the police all the time. Just no reason whatsoever, just assuming that they could find something. And it just, it wasn't coincidental. And I didn't experience that when I was younger, but just like being in that space and the constant stop, what are you doing? Or being in a space when I wasn't with him and driving to the beach and being asked, why are you here? And so it was like those moments that kept happening over again, or even when I was in college and people writing derogatory notes on the dorm, but it really was being in Wilmington at that time and just getting the repeated stops. And I was like, we got to do something. Like, I can't sit here and continue, not only from me, but, watching other people continue to stop. And we'd already been singing, and it was bringing so much joy to me and joy in other ways. And then I just really, and seeing all these folks, I was like, if we could just get all these people to come together, and if other people could see this, if they could see this model, they could see that it's okay for us to connect one another and reach across the aisle, whether it's race or age or religion, and that we can connect both within the group and provide that support and healing within the group, but also for other people to see that. So that was really important. And so I don't think we knew that OHF was going to be what it became. I think it really was, let's do this tour, because at the time I wanted to bring us together and really do something about the racial issue and to talk about it and to like make that the center, which isn't normally the case in a gospel choir. It's really, you come together and you sing and you worship, but not necessarily focus on that. So I think in terms of what I hoped for it is that it would bring some joy and light into the darkness that I was seeing.
Thanks, Dilsey. Cara, I wonder if you could help us understand why the arts, why music as the cornerstone for One Human Family?
Well, when you have an opportunity to come together and discuss something that is really weighty or really heavy, when you come to a dialogue about it, you tend to stay in your head about whatever it is, that you're discussing, which is useful, is critical, it's needed, but like I always said, and you mentioned it when you introduced me, music just has a way of cutting through whatever's in your head and going straight to your heart. I grew up in a musical family. We always came together. There are many singers, band directors, and my family actually had a marching band when I was growing up, which I didn't know was unusual until I left my hometown and realized that families just don't do that. But, whatever was going on in the family, we could sing about it. We could come together and do music about it. And, while that was going on, it just laid a foundation for the harder things to get worked out later. So, I had that in me already. And then we thought about, when we're singing, and you can take an art or music and you can split people apart with it, or you can bring them together because it's just that powerful. And so we thought, You know, we need to take that power of the arts and the music and harness it to bring people together. Music just has the ability to do that. You know, when we looked at the music that we wanted to do, we wanted to make sure that it had certain messages that was unifying, having the foundation of the writings from the Baha'i faith. We were able to put new music out with the unifying messages in a way that people just hadn't heard before. And we looked at, you know, music that had always had the power to do that. The African American spirituals and sacred music had always occupied that space of bringing people together, of letting people know about their station and their nobility and how people are equal. And so we really intentionally chose that music as the foundation for the music that we were going to do in One Human Family to bring people together.
Man, it sounds like a really perfect vehicle for the accomplishment of the oneness of humanity. And I've not heard it expressed the way you've just expressed it, that it's a vehicle for bringing about the oneness of humanity using African American gospel and spirituals. Thanks, Cara. So Charles, my question for you is, how does the Baha'i principle of the oneness of humankind influence the work that you're doing with One Human Family?
This principle of the oneness of humankind, it's a principle of the Baha'i faith. The choir, its workshop, its programs are centered around that theme, but the people who are part of that theme are not all Baha'is. They're multi-faith, they come from many different religions or no religions at all. But the thing that we have in common is that there is a desire inside someplace to know that this kind of oneness is who we truly are. And it's the same thing that we see in the world today. You know, there are many divisive elements out there, and these things have been poured into us. But also there are many people, you know, who have all this from this very diverse background, who know that this is not the way it should be. It should not be that way, that we should recognize that we are one family. And so when they hear of the message of the choir, and that's its goal, it's intentional. There's nothing accidental about it. That's intentional. When they hear of that, then people are attracted. And I think tomorrow there'll be a number of people who will be part of the program who have some history with One Human Family, and you can hear firsthand from them how this all works. But that goal that all of us on this small planet, you know, are connected. We're a family, and of course that's spiritual. But we have all these other things that have divided us, from color to, you know, to wealth, education. All of those divisive forces are out there, but we know that the reality, that's not it. That's not the reality. The reality is that the beauty of humanity is in its diversity. Mm-hmm. That's why it's attractive. And so when people hear of that, they want to be a part of that. You know, they want to make their own contribution, because to change the world from where it is to where it's truly supposed to be, it's going to take work. It's going to take effort. So One Human Family Choir is providing a space for that work. And people who hear of it are attracted to it, and they come and become a part of the workshop to bring about this change for themselves and also for the community in which we live.
I just have an assumption here that's passing through my mind, that when the choir performs and people are so responsive, I would think that would also attract new members to the choir as you perform. I would imagine that presenting that model, interfaith, intergenerational, interracial, is not something we see every day. And it's extremely attractive, very appealing, very magnetic, very magnetic.
Matter of fact, we were just on a program a couple of nights ago, and we're talking about One Human Family and what it stands for. And from that discussion, two people said, well, we want to become a part of that. And so they submitted their names and said they're going to join the group. You're right. That's exactly how it happens.
Wow. So what that demonstrates is the power of example. If you show people a model or an example of how things can be, it's attractive and people want to become a part of it. So I'm so excited to hear about this. Cara, since in the documentary you mentioned about the first bus tour through the Deep South, I wonder if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about that experience.
Eric had been writing music, taking the Baha'i writings and putting them to music, and then also doing his own arrangements of the spirituals. And he had been traveling from place to place and doing these little, groups that people that he knew, they would sing together. He'd teach them, they sang, people kind of come together and like really help create that music. And, like Dilsey said, we had these pockets of people that just knew the music, because as we went around and sang at different places, people would be attracted. They would either sing with us because we know them. And so Dilsey just had the idea, what if we just reached out to all these people that we've connected with along the way and put them on a bus and took them on a tour to Deep South. And first of all, I was thinking Dilsey's nuts, but second of all, I'm in. And the whole idea was, if we can bring this group of people together and unify them in such a way, and we would take the opportunity to really intentionally work on the relationships in the group, and at the same time use the group to do workshops in the places that we were going to go and stop and sing at, because we didn't want to just go and perform. We actually wanted to go and help promote unity in the places that we were at and give people an opportunity to experience what we were experiencing just for a couple of days, and hope that when we left, we would leave a pocket of unity each place that we had stopped, sort of like, just leaving little chocolate chips wherever we went. And so we did it. We did a y'all call, and people showed up. I think we had maybe 30, 40 people that first year show up, not even knowing what they were going to get into. And our only real request of them was, we're going to do some fun stuff and we're going to do some hard work, and we just want you to stay on the bus. We want you to trust the process. We want you to trust the love and respect that we're building in the group. And we're just going to really work on ourselves and work through some things. So there was some great moments and some moments we really had to work through. But the folks that went on that first tour were so bonded by the end of it, because we really did the work of building relationships amongst the group. We used to laugh and joke, like, if you're not really getting along with somebody, Cara and Dilsey going to put y'all in the same room. And we were like, well, whoever wins can come out and sing the next day if y'all fight.
Yeah.
And Dilsey and I really, we started, we working on our negotiation skills, because now you got to find out how to bring people to common understandings about things. And I think, Dilsey and I did so much work that I don't know how many times maybe we slept in the bathtub, because by the time we came to bed, all the beds were filled, because we just loading people up in rooms and stuff. It was amazing and terrible at the same time, but I would not trade that experience for anything. But by the end of that tour, people were so involved and invested in what we were doing that we actually were forced to form an organization around what we had already started. We were doing it before we knew what it was. It's like it birthed itself, and we came together to make sure that the baby was taken care of.
Wow, I bet being on that bus was something else. Yep. And I would imagine the people in the audiences were just amazed of this new model of interracial, interfaith coming together and singing, making joyful noise to the Lord. Wonderful. Next question is for you, Dilsey. You mentioned that your bio mentioned that you have performed and been involved in OHF in the United States and abroad. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so we have had the opportunity, because as Cara was saying, that it kind of birthed itself, and then people started hearing about the choir, and those who were on that first tour went back to their home communities and started telling people about One Human Family. So we started getting invitations really around the whole of the United States, but then that continued to grow and out to be outside of the US and in Canada. I think the first time we traveled was US Virgin Islands. We took a small group there, but it was just word of mouth that
people started hearing more and more about One Human Family. So as we were traveling and doing these workshops in different places, and we started forming different chapters and, started having new members happening in different places. And then when I think some of the exciting opportunities were when we got invited to come to 2 different UN conferences. And mainly it was because they saw One Human Family as an example of a model of unity. And so one of the conferences that we got to come to was the International World Women's Religious Leaders Conference. And that conference occurred after another conference that was inviting the world religious leaders to come together. And they discovered at that conference that only men really were voicing their opinions and women didn't have a voice. And so they created a new conference for women to be able and not that men couldn't come, but the women had the voice. And so One Human Family got to come and participate in that particular conference. And then later again at the World Conference Against Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia, and Related Intolerances in South Africa. I didn't get to go on that. Actually, Cara and I both didn't go on that particular tour, but other One Human Family members went to represent and sing again as a model of unity there as well, and to Belgium and many different places. So it's just been a nice opportunity, like just as much as it is singing on stage, to just be in the communities. We were recently just talking about being in Belgium and just the opportunity to just sing, just sing on the street or sing anywhere and just bring, joy to people. And I would say, we've had some really intimate settings that we've been able to sing in, whether it's a nursing home or a parking lot of an apartment building that was mostly people who were immigrants from other countries, to like larger theaters. And just each one of the experiences are so different, but it's again, going back to connecting with people. And so that's, I think that's what's been so wonderful about it, is just the opportunities that come that you're not even looking for, that come as a result of just of just doing what you love anyway and doing the work. So
great. Thanks so much. So your work has gone global. Yeah, it's a global choir. Marvelous. So Charles, this question's for you. What impact is One Human Family having on the members of the choir as well as on the audiences?
Well, I'll also suggest that if people want to hear from them firsthand, to come to the program tomorrow, because people would be talking about just that question. But I just want to just talk about the foundation of what happens with it. I want to read something. It says, ultimately, the power to transform the world is affected by love. Ultimately, it's affected by love. And that in these settings wherein love is the primary focus, enkindle souls through infinite conversations. Infinite conversations are the kinds of workshops that One Human Family has been doing. Through intimate conversations, they create new susceptibilities in humans' hearts. You're dealing with race and all of the isms that we have in this country. It creates new susceptibilities in human hearts. It opens minds to moral persuasions and loosens the hold of biased norms and social systems that can gradually take on a new form in keeping with the requirements of humanity's age of maturity. And so we see that we are moving toward this new age of maturity. We've been living through all of the kinds of immature, childlike, adolescent behavior of war, materialism, extremes of poverty, all these things that are out there. This is what kind of describes where our community is now. But now is the age, now is the time to build new communities based on the concept, the true reality, which is one of oneness based on love. So within the choir, that is the focus. Like Cara would, and people who assist with that will spend hours helping us to understand the music and the notes and the beauty of what that does. And that's attractive because people want to hear nice music too, because, you know, it connects their soul. They want that. But then what happens from their soul to their head in transforming that feeling into reality is what the workshops do. It tells us how to do that, the work that we have to do on the ground in our daily lives, in our interactions with each other in the choir. You know, people who are in a setting with someone else, they don't have those settings outside of this group. And especially one where it's so loving and warm that you can actually make so-called mistakes. You can say what you want to say. You know, you can be honest. And then also, you do things not just at that meeting, but you learn where you live, where the person lives. You learn about their children. Their children come to the meetings. Many of them, they're around when they learn the songs. They participate in the choir. You know, there are workshops for them. All of this is building a new society, is building a new community. And that's the core of what One Human Family is all about. The music is the attraction because it's powerful. And everyone in every culture will tell you, like Dilsey mentioned, whether we understand the words or not, music just touches something inside of us. So once we're in that setting, we're attracted to that. We have to understand what is that thing that's causing that kind of feel, that kind of reaction. And then once we understand it, then use it to change our reactions, you know, to do things differently in our community. Don't be influenced by what you hear all these descriptions of what humanity is, what people are, not be influenced by those things. We have a new narrative. And based on that new narrative, we build communities.
Thanks, Charles. Now, this question is for all three of you. What has been the most rewarding part of working with One Human Family Choir and workshops? And what has been the most challenging part of this work?
Well, I'll jump in first, but you know, it is a challenge helping to navigate relationships. It is very rewarding to see those relationships be navigated. It is a challenge for us to really look around and see such a need for what we have to offer, and to not have lots of times the resources to be every place that we need to be. Each one of us, you know, comes into One Human Family out of a feeling or a love for the work that needs to be done. But to see the mountain of work that needs to be done and not know how to get there, and not know how to, you know, be in all these places. You know, at one point we had official chapters in 13 different states and in Canada. And, you know, there is an operation to that needs to be coordinated and facilitated. And we all have other lives as well, but we love this work. And so I'll say one of the challenges has just been making sure that we're giving the time that is necessary for the baby to grow into a mature adult, you know, with the bumps and the scrapes and the bruises along the way, but that the vision, the message, and the milk, you know, still be pure when it gets where it needs to go. So, I mean, I don't know if it's very challenging. But oh my goodness, on the end of every event that we do, on the end of all the tears that are shed and the sleepless nights, and, you know, Dilsey and I'll just, you know, lots of times the folks that are organizing show up and we look like a mess because we're just working up to the wire. But when we see the response from the audiences, they're responding to that work that we've already done. They're responding to the unity in the bonds in the group. They're seeing that and able to be a part of something that we're helping to create. That is the most rewarding to me of doing this work with One Human Family.
Yeah, I would add, just in terms of like the challenges have come, you know, there's been different types of challenges over the years. There's the challenges of people coming together and, you know, the misunderstandings that are just going to happen. But like, you know, we're building family and every family doesn't get along all the time. And so we have to unpack all of these things. And so that's always challenging. But we've had other challenges throughout One Human Family. As Cara mentioned, we had 13 groups at one point in time, but we're also working other jobs. And this is something that we've been doing
volunteer. So it's also, been challenging. So funding, we were getting funding for a number of years that really helped us to do the workshops, both in universities and schools and around the country. But then a lot of the funding around race unity and racial justice dried up. And so that really had a huge impact on us being able to do the work. And it's only really been in the last 2 years, really, as we say, this racial awakening that happened, that's had kind of been happening, but really George Floyd's death really was what, and combined with COVID and people being in home and having the time to reflect is what, has now opened this back up. And now really people are really, really focused on racial justice. And I think right before, as we mentioned in the film, right before, COVID hit, things were really kind of really moving and shaking for One Human Family. And so, we thought it felt like a handicap on one hand, but at the same time, being able to have the time to make the film, also having the time for us to reconnect with choir members in other places that we hadn't been connecting with because we are virtual, as was mentioned in the film, has really opened up opportunities now. So those challenges are turning into opportunities. And so that's really exciting. And I think for me, like the biggest, most rewarding is just all of the friendships and the people I've met and have become part of my extended family. I mean, I definitely, as I mentioned, I don't think I really understood and appreciated it as much as a leader. You're feeling like, oh, I'm doing this for trying to make sure everybody else is okay and make sure that, just thinking more about them, but not really taking in how much it means to me and, for me to be a part of this group. So I'm just really happy to be blessed to meet so many people from so many different backgrounds. And it's really enriched my life and helped me get through some really different kinds of dark times that I've had experiences in my life. The choir and just singing with this group has really helped me be able to, as I walk along my journey. So
I would just add that, again, like personally, 2 or 3 days ago, I got an email from a friend who's part of One Human Family Choir, and she's from the indigenous community in the United States. And she was saying, oh, I would love to be there this weekend. She says, right now I'm out on the desert and I'm in a place where I haven't been for a long time. And the spirit here is so wonderful. And she plays the flute. And when you hear her, I mean, it just takes you to a whole different place. And I think that's the kind of people that are attracted to One Human Family. And so that's always uplifting when we see that what is being done is having an impact. Like one of the things that the choir is working towards right now is the formation. Well, it's going to happen. A choir, One Human Family chapter, is going to form in South Florida. And all of what we have described, people who are attracted to those goals and want to be a part to build a community based on these kinds of principles, that we are a family, and then using the power of music, the power of workshops to build communities, people will be attracted and they'll become a part of that. And so again, this network of people will grow, and our planet and our country, our state, as a result of all of that, will be a better place. And the core of that is the attraction of the heart from the sounds of the beauty of music. Yeah. So we're excited. I'm personally excited.
Yeah. I think one of the other things I wanted to mention was just the empowerment that people feel like who have joined One Human Family, who said, I didn't have the courage necessarily before to reach across the aisle to people who are not like me. I didn't have the courage to do it, and being a part of this has helped me feel empowered and that I can do it and just be in that space. And so just watching other people be able to grow, and then they're out there fighting for racial justice, now and being, out there doing it outside of One Human Family. And to me, that's what's important. It's like not just doing things within the group, but taking what you learn and then going on into your workplace and in your community and your neighborhood, and being able to continue to take the things that you've learned and whether it's and learning how to facilitate, like part of our mission is, frank and honest dialogue, but how to do that lovingly and how to connect and have authentic relationships and not, be afraid to speak your truth, and speak to that. And so I'm just really excited too. I feel like that's
one of the things I've been happy about is to see people being able to feel empowered to move beyond just what they've already, what they knew before they became a part of One Human Family.
So it sounds like people are growing and transforming as a result of being in this process with the One Human Family choir. It's not only a choir, you're offering a process for personal growth and transformation, and to become a citizen of the world who can connect with all kinds of people similar to oneself and very different from oneself. And to break down whatever those barriers are and to create bridges. It just sounds so timely. I mean, it's been timely like forever, but in the last 2 years, it seems really on point, really necessary, really important. So I have one final question for you, Dilsey, and that is, as a filmmaker, what's next for you and what's next for One Human Family?
Okay. So as a filmmaker, so I have 2 projects that I'm starting to work on right now, and both of them involve music, and that it was kind of coincidental, I think, in some ways. But I'm going to be doing a documentary. I think it was mentioned earlier on Reese Palmer, who is an African-American country singer that's based here in Durham. And she has a really powerful story, it's trials and triumphs, but beyond just her story, just, what it's like for African Americans who have been in country music. I mean, we all have heard of Charlie Pride, but there are many other people who have, been on this journey that we don't know about, and a lot of new artists or artists that are newer today that are also on this country music journey, and just sharing her story. And also about women, because we've had a decline in the number of women who are able to be on the radio because of the systems that are in place. Have not really given opportunities for women, whether you're Black or white, in country music. So I'm going to be doing a documentary that will appear on American Masters in November. And then the other story, other project that I'm going to be doing is with, I'm producing, not directing, is with Yusuf Salim. He was a jazz artist who was Muslim that moved here to the Raleigh-Durham area from Baltimore. And he just brought so many people together. He moved, I think it was like the late 70s, and during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, he mentored a lot of people like Chip Crawford, Nina Freelon, all of these famous artists that kind of came out of here were people he mentored. And he saw beyond race. And before he came here, Black jazz artists had their separate thing, and white jazz artists had their thing, and he brought people together. And so when the director told me about this project and asked me to be a part of it, it's in line with the kind of work that I want to do. And I think his story is really important to be told, as so many people who've been working for racial justice and race unity. And again, he's someone who's been using the music and again, being of Muslim faith, he crossed the boundaries. He was like, we're going to bring everybody together. So I'm excited about those 2 things. Last thing about One Human Family, as Charles mentioned, we are getting ready to start a One Human Family chapter in Florida, working with Kiskadee. And so we're really excited about that. And I think somebody put in the chat, if you're interested if you live in Florida area and would like to be a part of that, we'd love to have you. Beyond that, as I mentioned, now there's a lot more focus on racial justice and race unity. And so, as a choir, we are just trying to continue to sing. We're trying to still work in this COVID world, but we're trying to sing and strengthen our choir, do more workshops. Our goal is to expand the number of workshops that we do, both offering music and to have the conversations in communities, and pick up some of the pieces some of the other things we had before, which was like working with youth. We had a One Human Family youth workshop, and our goal this summer is to pull that back together and have our One Human Family youth workshop. So just just continue to do the work, and we're excited, like I said, about kind of being able to expand now, and also continue to continue the work that we've been doing. But I did want to mention, because we've been doing it for 20 years, I think over this 20-year, a little over 20 years, we've learned so much. And so I'm excited now that also, because other people see the need for racial justice and racial unity that we've been seeing along this whole time, that synergy will come together and really, really, push OHF forward.
I would not be surprised if there's an explosive growth spurt as a result, once we can be in person again.
Yeah.
But even virtual, I would think that this is a time for a great expansion and growth. Well, I just want to thank you for this conversation. I know there's more to come. We're going to take questions from the audience at this point, and here's one that I'd like to begin with, and this is for all of you. Many people are increasingly aware of the choir activities, but they know very little, if anything, about the wider scope of the workshop elements. So could you say a little bit more about what surrounds the music?
So I'll start talking a little bit about it. So I would say that each workshop is different. Like there's not a one standard size fits all. Sometimes when we do a workshop, we call it a workshop because we're working together and we're trying to put something together here. So they can consist of an afternoon, a couple of hours, a couple of days, and over a longer time period. What a lot of it consists of is, there's many different things that will happen in a workshop, but one of the things we do want people to know is the history of the music, where the music comes from, and why the music is the way that it is. As Cara mentioned, the music has always had, has always had a message of hope, always had the message of unity, all these things that we have been singing about or know about now, but it's been rooted in that and that spirit. So that's one element that we talk about. Other things are just more experiential in nature, is that like we use a lot of different art forms. So it's not just singing. A lot of times we use dramatic pieces. We've done art. It just varies when we're coming together, but part of it is having this experience and people sharing in many different ways and many different forms. So giving people a chance to have conversations one-on-one or in smaller groups. So that is really, really as important as the music. Again, like Cara said, the music is an opportunity for us to come together, sing, and the beauty of the music and connect with one another through that. But, on a different level, it's coming together and getting to know each other better. And so sometimes we have a question that's a prompt, and that we ask everyone to answer either in a small group or in a larger group. And I think it's really important to have those conversations because that's how we get to know each other. Storytelling, stories are really, really important in the work that we do, and people sharing their stories with one another and seeing those connections and seeing and seeing the difference as well. Like your story, I didn't have to experience what you're having to experience. I don't do that. I had, understanding what white privilege is. So there's a lot of things that we are unpacking. We've had book club readings together and reading books together. We've gone to the movies together. So there's a lot of other elements that we try to incorporate into One Human Family and into the workshops. So I won't say any more so I can give somebody else an opportunity to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that also, because I think some people feel like if they don't sing or they can't sing, One Human Family is not for them. And we do have so many other opportunities to engage in the work that we're doing when we have these workshops. We do incorporate our whole families when we get together, because we believe that if this work is going to get done, everybody has to participate. And so we are really intentional about making sure that we have activities that are focused towards the young children, the youth, as well as the adults in the group, and we have breakouts and do that. I just wanted to address that. It's not that you have to be in the choir to participate in One Human Family. The choir is just the most visible part of what we do. So it's what everybody sees, but it's so much more than just a choir.
Great. And I think you also answered one of the questions someone asked, is there something they can do if they don't sing? So you did. Yeah, that was one of the questions in the chat. And I just wanted to also just mention that the workshops also address social issues, real social issues that the members of the choir are confronting in their daily lives. And if race is a very strong component, and we know that it is, then workshops designed around how to deal with that, how to look at the falsities that has created it, look at solutions, And I think someone mentioned that in the chat also, it asked like, how do you transform it? How do you transform your life and the life of others? You know, and I think that's what the workshop piece is, you know, like we feel the beauty of our oneness in the power of the songs, but in those special groups, in those settings, we very directly, openly address the social issues so that we can understand how they become a part of the society, how they become a part of us as individuals. And then with that understanding, then we can change that reality because that's not our real reality. And so that happens in the workshops.
I'm noticing that there's going to be an introductory workshop on Zoom to kick off this Florida chapter in February. And if folks would like to know when it is, et cetera, they can write to info@baha'i.chat and write Florida Choir in the subject line. And you'll be added to the list of interested parties in order to stay in the loop. So thank you for that.
I noticed in the film Cara joyfully teaching one of the choir members the repetition over Zoom. Can you talk about the process for choir members to learn their parts? And what, if any, requirements you have for choir member singing ability? And someone else also asked about if they weren't a great singer, could they still be a part?
Y'all come. That's our motto. So we do not audition people to be in One Human Family. We will listen to your voice to see where you need to be placed. And we will do what we can to help work with you if you are tonally challenged. But it's really not, the music is a big part of it, but the process is what we emphasize so much. So by all means, if you have a desire to be in this group when music is happening, we want you to be there. You know, our choir has a great sound because we work really hard at being great. But, you know, we also know that there's something that happens when we do the front end work that we need to do, where God kind of filters out some of that mess that you might hear, because we're just so unified and intentional about how we're presenting it. And so we certainly welcome you. You may not have a mic in front of you, but you would definitely have a place in the group, if I can say that. But when we're working together to teach parts on Zoom and working through parts, you know, one of the great things about Zoom is you can get in and divide up in breakout rooms and work one-on-one to help people learn how to place and hear their voice and really hear what parts you're trying to get them to sing, so they can work on it individually, so that when we come together as a group, we can really do the work of blending the sound of the group together. So that's actually been a benefit of being forced to have rehearsals online. I hope that's a good answer.
One question that kind of relates to that is, did you previously have, or do you plan to keep a virtual component to OHF post-pandemic? I was fairly isolated for many years. I'm sure there's other people who'd love to participate in OHF who are not physically near a chapter.
So we did a lot of work when we started trying to meet in person again to figure out how to effectively have a hybrid rehearsal. And we think that we think that we've got it pretty much figured out. And of course, we could still use some more tweaking, but we are able to have people in the room when we're rehearsing with them, and also have people tuning into that Zoom so they can be a part of that rehearsal happening at the same time. And anything that we discover that will make that process even more seamless, we're really dedicated to making that available to people that are not in the immediate area where we are, or people that may or may not have to isolate as we continue to deal with the woes that 2020 brought us.
Here's a question I'm really interested in, and that is, what efforts are being made to attract younger people to the OHF?
No, I just wanted to give speak about what we've seen in the past, like the friendships that have been formed with family, children, and teenagers, and going off to college. I mean, it speaks for itself, the worth of having that component as part of a One Human Family. So we know the value of it. We know the value of it. I think the question was talking about the recruitment of them. Of course, that is another challenge that's out there, because the work of OHF is volunteers. You know, the people who have a heart for it, they work at it, they use their talents and their gifts to support it. But we are aware that is certainly that is the audience really to look at and attract. So I just wanted to mention that.
We have, as I mentioned before, had in the past, we had a One Human Family workshop, which did more than just singing. They performed all sorts of various art forms and toured. And that was something we just did in the summertime when the kids were out. We'd bring the kids together and they would create their own original work based on the challenges and the issues that they felt like as youth they were having. And so we're working, Cara and I both work with a Walltown Children's Theater, which is based here in Durham. And we are incorporating some of the things that we've done in our workshops into the work that we're doing there. But beyond that, also, we're trying to get the youth workshop component part of the program going. We were trying to heavily recruit younger people, but we find that Zoom has not been, as you saw, one of our youth, Mina, who was in it, has not been a place where they want it to be a part of. Like they had to do Zoom for school, and it's not been something that we've been able to recruit youth to participate online. But when we have things in person, youth will come and attend. So that's the challenge that we're facing, is that they're not really interested in Zoom. We did have the youth continue, and we were having Wednesday gatherings with some of the youth to just kind of like help them deal with the isolation and for them to be able to have a space to talk about it. But it is something that we have as an objective, is to, because we're getting older too, so we also have to recruit, but we also know that there are a lot of young people that could benefit from being a part of One Human Family, but also they can contribute so much. There's so much that I think that they can contribute to the conversation and to looking for solutions and to be engaged in their communities and finding the solutions and helping to empower them. So there's a lot of work being done in a lot of the Baha'i communities that through the youth empowerment programs, and we are trying to incorporate and trying to reach out to more youth. And I say youth and younger people, like people who are 30 and under, really trying to reach that audience. So that's an objective that we have. So
I see there's someone who's here from Greece, and they really liked what is being said, and again confirming that these issues that we are talking about here in this country is not unique to this country. They're all over the world. They're all over the world. And we also find that the solution, just based on our experience and limited experience, is that we have to be proactive in creating spaces to address the issues, because as we do that, it changes us. The world will not change unless I change. And then not only change, but then to do something at whatever scale that I can. If it's in my work, if it's in my community, if I'm a person, if I'm a farmer, whatever setting in my community, whatever capacity of gifts that I have to offer within that framework, then I can make changes in the world. And it's always been that way. Changes come about in society from the base, from the masses, from the small masses of people. Even though the powers that be want us to feel as if that's where all the power is, it really isn't. It's from the base and changing the base of the culture of people. And so that's what we're trying to do, to work from that in whatever group, whatever size, people who are attracted to it, they're ready, then they come and participate, and the world is better for it. So my brother or sister from Greece, we are with you.
Thank you. So someone asked, my first encounter with the large Baha'i group was the singing "O Baha'u'llah, bring us in unity." My heart and soul was curious, who is Baha'u'llah? In your travels and experience, how do you focus on Baha'u'llah and his suffering and exiles and travels? So we've had different types of workshops that talk about many different things, but Baha'u'llah, for those who aren't familiar, is the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith and brought the message of the oneness of religion and the oneness of humanity. And so he suffered greatly throughout his life, as many prophets of God have. And so it's one of the things that we talk about is like looking at that suffering and what happens in the suffering, and also looking at the experience of African Americans suffering through slavery. And so we have conversations around that as well, and bringing those things together. So that's just, I don't want to go into too much detail, but there's some opportunities for having conversations around that and the suffering of others, I think. And I won't go into any more detail in regards to that.
I think along the lines of that question as well, Dilsey, is, One Human Family is a multi-faith organization. And there's, like you said, so many parallels amongst the central figures in each of the faiths, that actually becomes a point of unifying the group as well. If we can talk about that shared experience amongst the prophets and how that relates, that's another point of connection for the people in the group, because we are from different faith communities in one human family.
Thank you. And Charles, I'll ask you this question. What are the most effective resources we can utilize for building and increasing our capacity?
Well, I think there are two things. One is we have to have a tool to evaluate ourselves, to look at how I am today, and then when am I going to go back and measure that? And it's in daily habits. Like if I'm talking about what am I going to do to have the qualities, the insight, and then the energy to face life and to be part of change, then what must I do each day to prepare for that? And I can tell you what mine are. So other people have different things. Like with me, it's meditation, it's prayer, it's reading, it's studying the lives of messengers of God or people of influence in the society that have made great changes. All these kinds of things inspire me. But I have to regimentally look at these words, be attracted and do these things on a daily basis, so that when I walk out of the door of my house and even inside of my family, I'm in a position where I can be hopefully some kind of light of hope, rather than meeting everyone that on the path and they say, oh, it's so terrible, this happened. I say, oh yeah, that's right, it sure is. And then we just both admit that it's all bad and we just go on our way. And that's often what happens because we are hopeless. But then if I want to have more than that and then be committed to doing something, I have to decide what is it I'm going to do in my community with my own circumstances, and then do it. And then do it. And then at the end of the day or the next day, I wake up and ask myself, what did I do yesterday? How did I address this particular thing? How did it work? Did I do it better, or am I in the same space? If I didn't do it as well, okay, then I need to. And it's a daily thing. It's a daily practice. There's no magic in this. The magic is in that the forces of unity and oneness are real, and they will empower us. But we have to put ourselves in the stream to receive that kind of power and energy to help propel us to be a part of the solution that has to occur to recognize the beauty of the oneness of who we all are. And it's a wonderful thing to recognize that.
Thank you, all three of you, for this really informative, but also inspiring conversation. It's been elevating, it's been spiritual, and it's given all of us an opportunity to think about what are the practical avenues available to all of us. Maybe we want to join One Human Family. Maybe we want to start something in a different path in our own communities, because everyone has gifts to offer that can advance the unification of all people on the planet.
Thank you, Kathy, so much for facilitating. And we're going to end with a song called Keep On Working, that's sung by a small group of us from One Human Family, Kim Pacheco and Christian Fushi Green, who plays the piano, and it's Keep On Working. So I want to encourage you all to keep on working, keep striving, keep working on unity and racial justice wherever you go. So hopefully we'll leave this song with inspiration.
I gave up everything to follow him. Now my life is not so dim. I gave up everything to follow him. Now he is my best friend. I gave up everything to follow him. Now my life is not so dim. I gave up everything to follow him. You better play. Now he is my best friend. My mind is made up. I'm on my way. Way up. I gotta hold my head up. I'm going on to work for my Lord. To work for my Lord. My mind is made up. And I'm on my way. Way up. I got to hold my head up. I'm going on to work for my Lord. To work for my Lord. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. For the kingdom of God. For the kingdom of God. Striving. On striving. Though the road gets hard. Though the road gets hard. Keep my hand in God's hand. Keep my hand in God's hand. I've got to hold on. I've got to hold on. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. Till I reach my goal. Till I reach my goal. It's the dawn of a new day. Dawn of a new day. For the children of God. For the children of God. One shepherd. One shepherd. That's the hope of the Son. Jesus Christ the Son. He prayed for the kingdom. Pray for the kingdom. For the kingdom to come. For the kingdom to come. I've got to keep on striving. Keep on striving. Till the victory's won. Till the victory's won. Hey. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. For the kingdom of God. For the kingdom of God. I've got to keep on striving. On striving. Though the road gets hard. Though the road gets hard. Keep my hand in God's hand. 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 I've got to hold on. I've got to hold on. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. I've got to keep on working, y'all. On working. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. I've got to keep on striving. Keep on striving. I've got to keep on teaching. Keep on teaching. I've got to keep on preaching. Keep on preaching. I've got to keep on believing. Keep on believing. I've got to keep on toiling. Keep on toiling. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. I've got to keep on working. Keep on working. Till I reach my goal. Till I reach my goal.
And that is Christian. You guys, that's wonderful.
That was wonderful. What a way to sign off. Thanks so much.